CNN has called the race for Lula da Silva. Lula wins third term as president in fiercely contested runoff.
All right. So
Wow. That is a truly wonderful story. It really is. That is a wonderful, wonderful story. I did not expect having to be serious tonight dressed like this, but we will have to be serious for a moment.
And you're not really making it work either.
It's very difficult. it's very difficult given how we're dressed here, given the circumstances. And Sean, you are half Brazilian. Well, congratulations, my friend.
I have a Brazilian wax.
Yeah.
So my better half is Brazilian.
Your better half, right? Exactly. That is just extraordinary news. I mean, that's great. I mean, look, we on the left in America are still fucked, right? We're still up a river, right? I mean, we're still screwed, and so we would like to think that we could elect a leader like Lula, who actually delivers results for people, with a proven track record of doing that. We would like to think we can do that. And it sucks that we can't, and there's a lot of suffering here at home because we can't. However, I just have to say, if you are actually on the left, and, we reject a lot of the excesses of woke discourse because we believe that the discourse undermines the goal, which is equality for everybody. And if you are really on the left, you must, by definition, believe that Brazilian lives are just as precious as our lives here. And so a win for the fourth largest democracy on earth of this nature is fantastic, and it's extraordinarily inspiring that this could happen. I have two white men whose names I want to rattle off here, which shows where we live and the way we look at the world, right? This is an admittedly privileged or insulated take on this, but the first name I want to bring up is the late, great Michael Brooks, who got to interview Lula shortly before he passed. He did a lot of wonderful journalism on this story. He made this story mainstream in the online left. If there is any justice in the universe at all, he is smiling somewhere right now that Lula has won. He played his own small part in making this happen. And I also want to mention, this is perhaps more relevant. It's less sentimental. It's less emotional, but it's more relevant. I also want to thank the grifter right-wing fascist Glenn Greenwald for helping to exonerate this far-left candidate who then went on to win the presidency in the world's fourth largest democracy. If I were a right-wing grifter, I don't think I'd have done that. But it's big on him because he's such a right-wing grifter. He's such a fascist.
But he goes on Fox, Keith.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I mean, a guy like that who goes on Fox News, he's a fascist, he's a right-winger, he's a transphobe, he's this, he's that. It was his journalism that was so instrumental in freeing Lula in the first place and making this happen. Greenwald obviously lives in Rio himself.
While living in a country where a right-wing fanatic who makes Trump look stable could have had him whacked at any time or unjustly imprisoned. And he did it anyway. And he didn't even leave the country. He stayed there. I said this on the show before. I wouldn't have stayed in Brazil if I was going to drop that article and Bolsonaro was running the country. He did. Yep. And these maggots are going to come out and start denigrating him, calling him crazy. On what basis? You heard this from a lot of them. Again, it's just that tactic of throwing the ick on somebody. What do you mean he's crazy? On what grounds? On what grounds do you say that? And when you ask them that, they can't tell you. They can't tell you. I've asked these people, can you give me an example of him committing an act of dishonesty in his reporting? Can you find something to show me where his reporting is inaccurate or dishonest? No. It becomes this echo chamber. Glenn Greenwald talks to Tucker Carlson. That's it. We had somebody ranting in our comment section about the fact that we interviewed Aaron Mate.
Well, that's right. We coddled him.
We coddled him. We're coddlers. Oh, Greenwald is trending on Twitter. One of our...
Glenn Greenwald is trending on Twitter. Whole string of the stupidest comments imaginable if you're feeling that you have a strong stomach. Yeah, I wish I could check, man. I wish I could browse Twitter right now, but I can't because I got to be here with you folks. But
well,
yeah,
also
we're
we're really upset about Elon taking over.
Oh yeah, that's
we're not
true.
sure what we're gonna do. We both have blue checks.
Sarah Bareilles quit Twitter apparently today in protest. Sarah, who wrote the song that it was the big song, Brave, at the DNC 2016. Say what you want to say.
I see. Well, as Sarah Bareilles goes, so goes the nation.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think, all the libs want to leave Twitter. I think that's a great start. If they would just, shut the fuck up in real life, then we'd really have a world to live in, Then things would be real great.
I see trees of green.
That's good. That's actually a good Louis Armstrong. That's not bad.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the 28 years of smoking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let me just read some. I'm sorry I can't put these up on the screen.
Counselor Troy quit. Well, maybe her fellow cast member Whoopi would get off there. Then we would really be making some progress.
Someone check on Glenn Greenwald. His fascist president just lost re-election to the based Lula da Silva. I mean, what an extraordinarily ignorant statement. Extraordinarily ignorant comment that is. Greenwald. Okay, let me read one more. I'm only doing two because we have a show that we have to get to here. All right. Jair Bolsonaro won't see your tweet celebrating his loss, but Glenn Greenwald will, so crank that shit up. As if Glenn Greenwald is upset that Bolsonaro lost. What Glenn Greenwald has been saying in the run-up to this race is something that everyone with a brain has been feeling, which is nervousness that the polls were way wrong, because the polls were way wrong. If the polling were accurate, Lula would have won this race by 8 points. Instead, he barely squeaked it out by 1.5 points. And so what Greenwald was saying is that the polling industry's reputation is on the line here because it looks like Bolsonaro might pull off an upset, in which case all of these pollsters will have a ton of egg on their face because every single poll has had Lula up by 5+ points. 10+ points going back a few weeks. It looked like he was going to win before the runoff a month back. But the fact of the matter is the polls were way wrong. Bolsonaro's base was way underpolled because he polled within 2 points of this thing. And all Greenwald was saying was that. All he was doing was expressing that concern. That, in case you're a moron, in case you're dumber than the creature I am dressed as this Halloween, all that means is that he is concerned that the polling industry is wrong. That does not mean he wants Bolsonaro to win. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just extraordinary. I wish I had time to go through these. I will this evening.
That's instructive of the bubble these people live in, because I think probably somebody who thinks that, because they've been told, they've been programmed Glenn Greenwald bad, so he can't be on Lula's side. And they're fundamentally ignorant because their media doesn't tell them things like, Glenn Greenwald is the one that broke the story of the corruption that put Lula in jail. They're not told that in the Times.
Right.
They're not told that in the Washington
This would
Post.
not have happened without Glenn Greenwald.
They don't
very
know that,
likely.
They don't know that. They don't know any of that because the only media they go to would never emphasize that. They would never tell that. I would be shocked if the stories about Lula winning that you would see in the papers tomorrow mention Glenn Greenwald at all. I would be shocked if they do. So, yeah, you're a dumb lib. You're programmed by this bubble media that Glenn Greenwald is this evil right-winger. So in your mind, he must be associated with Bolsonaro, right? Like you want, because for you to think he would be for Lula would open up some daylight between you and your most trusted news sources. And that would force you to question all of your beliefs and your identity. They can't do that. It would create massive cognitive dissonance for them to acknowledge that Glenn Greenwald is basically the reason Lula won tonight. He wouldn't have been in this position without Glenn Greenwald. It never would have happened without. But that
He'd have probably still been in prison.
He'd probably still
Glenn
be in
Greenwald.
prison. They can't think about that because it opens up too much uncomfortable territory. That's too much cognitive dissonance. So that's how you get that kind of stunning ignorance, right? Like, it's Glenn Greenwald. He must be for the bad guy because he's Glenn Greenwald. And somebody told me he was bad. And oh, so what did he report that was bad? I don't know. He talks to Tucker. I don't know. That's what they told me.
Yeah, right. Those are the kinds of people who we're going to showcase in this next segment that we're doing.
Yeah, but see, there's the thing. Glenn is a leftist. He is a leftist. Like that's it.
Look,
that's what they do. People to the left of them are right wing.
I mean, Glenn's husband
we get that all the time.
Is a socialist. He is a socialist politician in Brazil. Glenn spoke very favorably of the 2016 Sanders campaign and very harshly of the Democrats for rigging it in Clinton's favor. The only label he has ever ascribed to himself is a civil libertarian, because his thrust as a journalist has been, civil liberties and stuff. So he is. Yes, Bill is right about that. He has never proclaimed himself to be a leftist, but his opinions have generally been very sympathetic to the left until the left took a turn towards this sort of authoritarian policing of discourse and speech.
Right.
There's footage of Greenwald going back and forth with Bill Maher about Islamophobia and Sam Harris about Islamophobia. Greenwald has spoken very critically of the military-industrial complex, the national security state. These used to be leftist views, right? These used to be left-wing views. So you are right, Bill, that he has never actually called himself a doctrinaire leftist, but if you look at his record, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that he has moved the ball forward for the left far more than he has for the right. To the extent he has been a water carrier for the right wing, he has simply said and held firm, and I agree with him, that people should have the right to express their opinions, whatever they are, without fear of undue reprimand. Right. And I think that that's absolutely true. And to the extent that the left has become hostile to that notion, he has turned on them. And you know what? They deserve to be turned on for that.
Right. So have I.
Right. Exactly. And look, I just have to drive this point home. Whether he calls himself a leftist or not, the fourth largest democracy on earth just put back in power one of the most successful left-wing leaders in modern world history. I want to just drive that home. Lula has been perhaps the most successful left-wing leader in modern world history. If you look at the economic numbers, if you look at the people pulled out of desperate poverty, okay, this is a guy who won and did it. He didn't win and get sandbagged and fail and get whacked or get voted out in a landslide because he was sabotaged. This guy won and delivered the goods for his people and was extraordinarily popular to the point where he could basically win a race, the way Eugene Debs tried to win. Not technically. He didn't run from prison, but he went from being a political prisoner to being elected president. And that speaks volumes to his record. And that does not happen in all likelihood. I mean, you can never say never. We can't prove a negative. But in all likelihood, that does not happen without Greenwald's help. And so to people who are saying he's a right-wing stooge, I mean, ridiculous. Absolutely, absolutely absurd. And it's a little, if I may say so, it is a little chauvinistic to say that. I would even venture it's a little bit racist to say that. Because what it is to dismiss the importance of what happened tonight. Brazil, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. The fourth largest democracy on earth. This is a major country. This is a major country. This is not some tiny island nation who put a socialist in power. This is a major country. And this is a major world event. This is a tremendous global victory for the left. And it came largely thanks to the intrepid journalism of Glenn Greenwald, who put himself at great risk
Great personal
to do
risk.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please clap.